week after week. As part of my annual physical forever, I've been getting hearing tests, and the audiologist would tell me that I was showing the common pattern, the stereotypical pattern of declining hearing, especially in the upper frequencies, where not coincidentally women's voices often live. And so I could come back from the audiologist and tell my wife that it wasn't that I wasn't paying attention. She was just not talking on a frequency that I could receive. And so we had that conversation. Eventually, an audiologist suggested it really was time for me to look at hearing aids. That was just before direct to consumer, the over-the-counter devices became available. So those were not really an option when I was going through this process. So that makes things even more complicated than they already were. The reason they were complicated is these are expensive devices. And so first there's the cost, then there's the insurance, and then there are just many, many different device styles and technology, lots of different kinds of providers, lots of different services that are available. One of the things that I've seen recommended is that before you get hearing aids, get a full medical exam to make sure that what you're dealing with is not simply diminished hearing, and to rule out other possible medical causes, and to get the audiogram. The audiogram is the graph that is drawn for frequency response for both ears. And apparently, legally, you're entitled to that. And so if you get a hearing test someplace that also sells hearing aids, they're obligated to give you the audiogram printout, even if you're not going to buy the hearing aids there. I tend to research things that I'm going to do, research things that I'm going to buy. And so I spent quite a lot of time doing research. It's still a rapidly evolving context, the market, the choices. It's a moving target. So make sure that you have current information. You can look at Consumer Checkbook, Consumer Reports, talk to people, because there's nothing like getting testimonials, anecdotal experience from people that you trust. In this case, it's actually worth paying attention to advertising, because an ad that I saw in a magazine saved me $2,500. And I'll talk about that a little bit further on. Look at credible websites, and one that was recommended to me is the set of videos from Dr. Cliff Olson on YouTube. And there's a Northern Virginia Resource Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing that also has some very useful handouts that you can download and print. Just like buying a car, it's important to comparison shop. Once you get hearing aids, you will probably be going back to your provider. So location actually matters. Credentials matter. You can deal with an ENT, ear, nose, throat, MD. You can deal with a doctor of audiology. You can deal with a licensed hearing aid provider. And as you can guess, the qualifications, the knowledge, the training, and the services that can be provided differ across all those three levels. One piece of advice is don't buy the first devices recommended from the first place that you visit. I've talked to people who did that, and I'm not convinced that they necessarily got the best product for them, because they didn't shop around. And just like buying a used car, if you're feeling pressure, if you're feeling here's a discount today only, that's probably not a place that you want to deal with. Hearing aids are unique. There's really no one product service provider that will fit everyone, both literally fit in the ear, but also fit in terms of services that you might want. There are different form factors, different physical appearances of the devices that are available. Behind ear, open fit, all of those other things. You can decide if you like replaceable or rechargeable batteries. I found that the rechargeable batteries are much more convenient than continually tinkering with changing batteries. As you go from place to place, take notes, because after you've been to two or three places and tried two or three different devices, you'll probably lose track of how you felt about each one. It's very important to try the devices on site. And I've heard from other people that they were actually able to use loaners. They were actually able to take a loaner device and live with it for a couple of days. And that's a good thing to do, just like taking a used car or taking any car out for a test drive. Uh, Being able to use the device in real world settings, not just in a provider's office, will give you much more comfort in what you actually decide to buy. And make sure you understand the operation. These are tiny but complex devices, and so you really need to understand how they're going to work once you own them. I'll go through the levels of shopping that I did. I found a provider very near me, very convenient, very pleasant setting, wonderful people there. The ENTMD was wonderful. The doctor of audiology was great. With a purchase there, that would have been full and lifetime service. It was expensive. The devices that I was looking at were somewhere between $4,000 and $7,000. I would get $2,500 from insurance, but that still left it pretty expensive. Right around that time, EarLens was introduced for $12,000 a pair, and at least at that point, not covered by insurance. EarLens is the tiniest and most intrusive, apparently, of all of the available devices. It's a little gizmo that the ENT inserts deep into your ear up against the eardrum. And so the theory is that that provides the best fidelity, the best quality hearing. But the $12,000 was a little bit too much. And I was actually not comfortable with that level of intrusion. So I skipped the ear lens. Shopping number two, I saw a magazine ad for True Hearing, and there's the website. And that remains a puzzling referral service for big savings. The way that works is that you contact True Hearing with an 800 number or website, and they will refer you to a provider in your area. It doesn't work with all insurance, but it did work with mine. So the second place that I went was also a nearby office, but with disadvantages. It was a dumpy, minimal office, and the follow-up after my initial contact was absolutely ghastly. Besides that, they only offered one brand, and it was a licensed provider, not a doctor of audiology. So that didn't win the prize. I went back to True Hearing, and they found another provider, which is the one that I'll deal with, and the one that the doctor is with. Not quite as convenient, but it had the aspect of combining the professionalism of number one with the savings available from number two. I chose the then top of the line Oticon One hearing aids, and between the $2,500 True Hearing discount and the $2,500 insurance, I paid $2,000 for devices that had a list price of about $7,000. The very small compromise is that that provided only 1 year of service versus lifetime. But that cost saving, the extra $2,500 of saving, certainly justified the minimal fees of paying $65 a visit when I need to go back to the office. Those are the people, Alexandria Hearing Centers at the Walker Lane location. Very, very extensive pre-purchase discussions covering options, services, costs, absolutely great delivery and usage instructions, very, very responsive to follow-up questions, and that has continued. Even though the purchase through True Hearing only qualified for a year of service, they're very, very responsive to email queries, asking questions, reporting problems, getting solutions. And for this crowd, they were very happy with the process of initially pairing the hearing aids with the iPhone and the iPad. Um, Here comes a technology digression. As I said, my background goes back decades in technology. starting with IBM mainframe computers that filled the room. When I bought my first iPad, by now probably 10 years ago, I was awed. I was astonished by the technology that they could fit into that relatively small form factor. And then you'll see two exclamation marks next to the iPhone because the iPhone is smaller and does even more. And then came an Apple Watch, which gets three exclamation marks. And then the next was the hearing aids, where these devices have been getting smaller and smaller and just fit an astonishing amount of technology into the devices. For example, I'm on this Zoom call wearing my hearing aids, which are paired with my iPhone. And so I hear the dialogue, I hear the spoken dialogue through the hearing aids. And that means that I can be in a Zoom session and I can walk 20 or 30 feet away from the phone, for example, if I'm in the kitchen doing something and I don't need to be looking at the screen. The hearing aids untether me from the device to the extent that I can walk around and do things. As I said, the what I bought are the Oticon devices. One of the first things that delighted me was they come with excellent manuals. With the technology background that I have, I was spoiled by having a bookshelf full of documentation. And sadly, most technology products now, even Apple products, are very scarce in printed material. The Oticon manuals are excellent. And there was one manual for general use of the hearing aids and another separate manual for using the Oticon app on the iPhone and iPad. For a couple of reasons, I bought an additional charger for the hearing aids. One reason is that I like the convenience of having a charger in my office and downstairs in the family room. And the other reason is that the charger that comes with the hearing aids is open. That means that the hearing aids rest in the charger, but they're exposed. We have cats, and anybody on the call who has cats knows that cats are creative in finding mischief to perform. And I didn't feel like having the hearing aids within range of cat claws when the devices cost $1,000 each. And also, the extra charger that I bought has its own battery. That means that if I go on a trip of a couple of days, I can simply take the charger, which has its own built-in battery to recharge the hearing aids. There were some minor issues, minor irritations initially pairing the aids with the devices. And another irritation is that the technology is such that in order to pair the hearing aids with a TV or with a sound bar that uses Bluetooth, you still need to buy an expensive Oticon device to allow the TV to pair with the hearing aids, and I've not done that yet. As I mentioned, pairing the hearing aids with the devices, with an iPad or an iPhone, I can listen to Zoom calls, I can watch and listen to YouTube videos, I can take phone calls using the hearing aids. The iPhone obviously gets updated, upgraded, iOS does, as does the Oticon app, and as do the hearing aids firmware. And so that's something that your provider does occasionally during one of the follow-up visits. Initially, I found that I had to repair the devices occasionally to the devices, but that seems to have gone away. And the iPhone settings has extensive options related to accessibility and related to hearing. So those are worth exploring. The hearing aids work with the Oticon app. The app provides on-off settings, controls the volume, controls the microphone, and allows selecting which program the hearing aids are using. The normal program is just for routine use. Telecoil is an interesting feature that allows the hearing aids to connect to a venue's sound system. And I've used that a couple of times in community buildings or in theaters where they have telecoil. When I set the hearing aids to the telecoil program, I'm receiving directly what is coming over the venue sound system. And that's very nice. That's very, very good sound fidelity. And the third program is speech in noise, which emphasizes speech and de-emphasizes background noise. The hearing aids, or the app rather, has a Find My Hearing Aids feature, and so you can use that to at least see if you're close to the hearing aids. Updating the Oticon app lost the watch complication. I had a complication for the Oticon app on the watch, so that with one tap I could bring up the app and do what I needed to do. Now it requires a couple of extra settings. I have to press the crown, then pick the Oticon app, and then do what I want. For a while, there was a minor annoyance, but I figured that out. If the hearing aids by accident went into the telecoil program, the hearing aids would buzz. And I found that sometimes when I would get in my car, I would start the car and the hearing aids would buzz. And even more strangely, sometimes when I was in the house, there were certain parts of the house and certain places where I would get a buzz on the hearing aids. But once I discovered that all I needed to do was take the hearing aids out of the telecoil program, that went away. The initial recommendation is once you get hearing aids, wear them all day, every day, because your brain needs to acclimate and adapt to using the hearing aids. If you exercise vigorously, you may sweat enough so that the hearing aids will notice, and so you may need to dry or clean the domes on the hearing aids. The domes are the little umbrella that goes into your ears. There's a number of choices in the configuration of the domes that affect both the hearing quality and frequency responses and fit. So it's worth experimenting with the domes. Uh, Unsurprisingly, the more you push the dome, the harder you push the dome into your ears, the better the hearing will be. I have it on good authority from my provider that you can't push the domes in so far that they will fall into your head and not be retrievable. That hasn't happened yet. At one of the follow-up visits, the doctor added little retention rails, which are very thin plastic rods that just help the hearing aids stay in the ear, and they're completely unobtrusive. Wearing hearing aids, you will be buying new supplies. You will be buying new domes and new filters. Those are free during the support period, but they're just inconsequential expense on an ongoing basis. And you can clean the domes. For a while, I was cleaning them with microfiber, but was recently just advised to use the alcohol pad, and that seems to do the job just as well. And it's about the same effort to take the domes off and clean them and put them back as it is to replace the domes. And so that somewhat reduces the need to keep buying replacement domes as long as you can clean the ones that you're using. A couple of uh-ohs. I was doing outside chores, and when I came in, I realized one of the hearing aids was missing. I went back outside and walked the path that I had been right next to our house. And even though the Find My feature was teasing me by telling me that the hearing aid was close, I couldn't find it. I went out the next day after there had been rain and after the grass had been mowed and found the hearing aid, and it was just fine. More recently, I lost a hearing aid somewhere in the house. I never found it. And again, Find My said it was close, but there's no way to tell the hearing aid to make a noise the way you can with one of the Apple tag device AirTag devices. And so that cost me a $350 one-time replacement fee for that missing hearing aid. And so, last in conclusion, check your hearing annually and save the audiograms so that you can track your hearing changes. So you can see a trend, you can see when it's time to, based on your history and your hearing experience, suggest getting hearing aids. Do the research, understand your coverage and your discounts, comparison shop, and explore technologies. It's almost 2 years since I bought my hearing aids, and my understanding is that Oticon has come out with new models which are even more impressive in terms of the things that they do. So it's still a moving target. And so let's see if I can get out of this and figure out how to stop sharing. And I have done that. So I think, let's see, based on time, up to you, Jonathan. Do you want to have questions now? Do you want to let the doctor speak and then do all the questions at the end? Up to you.
Jonathan, you're muted.
Let's do a short Q&A now. Actually, Gabe, if I could ask the first question. I noticed that there actually is an Oticon companion complication on the Apple Watch. I haven't really used that much. Is that something you use?
That might have been introduced. That might be something I didn't know about, because I complained to Oticon when the complication went away, and they said, "Yeah, we understand. We're going to try to bring it back." And so maybe they did, and I didn't know about it.
I think they must have brought it back.
It may be, Gabe, that uninstalling and reinstalling the Oticon app will bring the complication for your watch with it when you reinstall the app on your phone or wherever you have it, iPad or phone. I don't know, just a possibility.
But you know, the old thing is that on the iPhone, it's the companion app. It starts with a C. On the watch, it's Oticon Companion.
That's odd.
So they don't make it particularly easy, you know?
I at this point, if it were me, I'd go to the Oticon website, look for their frequently asked questions, browse through them. If I didn't find an answer there, I'd look for additional help on site, or maybe even
Bruce,
contact.
I'm not talking about help. I'm talking about the ease of finding the app on your different devices. That's all.
Right, because they're not consistent with their naming.
Gabe, I have another question, and folks, just ask to be recognized if you want to question Gabe after his present now. Yeah, the other thing I wondered about is if you use your Oticon hearing aids for a lot of music streaming, to what extent does it run the batteries down so you actually have to charge them before the end of the day? So far, I've found that rarely, if ever, do I have to charge them before the end of the day, and I charge them on, on a by my bed, overnight, and that seems to work very well.
I have no idea about how they work with music streaming. I have not done that. My use is mostly with Zoom or with YouTube.
Well, I won't put some music on just so we can test that. Mike Emery, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation, Gabe. I just want to say that I have ReSound for the brand of hearing aids that I have, and the pairing of the hearing aids to my phone with that first pair of hearing aids that I had was not great. And in fact, that the delay was just enough to where I turned it off. I didn't want to use it at all. The second pair of hearing aids that I got a couple of years ago has that feature improved so much that I rely on it very heavily and really enjoy it. So as the devices keep coming out and new features are added, current features improved upon, it's just amazing what the devices can do. And having rechargeable units, so I'm not replacing batteries, all the time, is really a big help.
Right. A feature that I would love to have that, based on that slide that I showed, I would like to have a button in the app that would make the hearing aids make a siren sound and flash a bright light to enable finding them if you've misplaced them. But I don't think that even with technology advancements, I don't think they'll be able to fit that into a wearable hearing aid.
The other problem with a bright light, don't forget, lights take up quite a bit of juice, although you wouldn't be flashing it for very long, hopefully.
I think that's what I said, Bruce.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Sorry.
So, Gabe, I know that there's a Find My in the hearing aid app, but can you also use the Find My on the phone to find them?
I don't think so. I don't know. The hearing aids don't show up in the list of devices. The list of devices that I have, which is all of the, I don't know, 12 or 15 AirTags that I have scattered around, show up, but the hearing aids do not. I think you have to use the app, the Oticon app in my case, to use the Find My, and it tells you if you're close, but it doesn't give you a direction finder. It doesn't let you play warm or colder and trying to find the hearing aid. So it tells you if you're close, which can be good news. It also tells you if you leave them somewhere. It will show you a map that may give you a clue where to go back to if you may have lost the hearing aids somewhere that at the moment you are not. So it gets you close to them and will reassure you that you are close, but after that, it's up to you.
Yeah, Jonathan, it's two separate systems. The Apple Find My system works with your Apple ID and your iCloud account. I don't think they have any, at least as far as I know, as of yet, there are no third-party devices that can show up in the list of devices that Find My can find. So
Right.
it would take a cooperative effort. It would take a cooperative effort between the hearing aid manufacturer and Apple for them to do that. It'd be nice if they did, but I don't see that right now.
Yeah, I think I realize that now, Bruce. Thanks. Folks, any more questions for Gabe? Oh, I wanted to be sure, everyone was notified that we're recording the meeting and we're also live streaming it to YouTube. Well, listen, as I said before, please add any questions to the chat as we go forward. And maybe we'll get started a bit early with Dr. Perera's talk that will give us more time at the end. Dr. Perera, we're so glad to have you at our PI meeting here today. And all I know is that if Gabe thinks highly of you, then we automatically do too.
I'm glad to hear it. All right, yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. Let me just pull up my slides real quick. All right, so just a little bit of background on me. What got me interested in the field is my dad actually has hearing loss, so that's kind of what introduced me to audiology in general. Of course, I did my due diligence, looked to see what type of schooling was involved, what what the day-to-day would look like. And I really like the intersection of both healthcare and technology. So that's how we got started. And you'll see my schooling here. I got my undergraduate degree at University of Pittsburgh, and then I got my doctorate of audiology at University of Maryland. So that's what brought me to the area. And as part of that program, you have to do a residency. So I did mine at Mass Eye and Ear up in Boston, which is part of Harvard's medical school. Right now, I'm at Alexandria Hearing Centers. We have 2 locations, one at the Walker Lane location in the Springfield area. We have one in the Sherwood Hall area by Mount Vernon. So I split my time there. Okay, so there's kind of a process that you have to go through in terms of your hearing healthcare. So the first step is coming in for a hearing test. In general, we recommend starting at about 60 years old just to get a baseline, see where you're at. That is roughly where we start to see some changes happening. I take a detailed history of your hearing, your medical history. That's important because that gives me information as to your care. So for example, if you just started noticing a change in your hearing very suddenly, a couple weeks ago, that course of care is different compared to someone that's had a more chronic change in their hearing. So some things we can recommend a medication for, some things we go down the hearing aid route. An important step is for me to do otoscopy, which is me looking in your ears. I look to see if there's any wax or anything else that could be, physically impeding the hearing. This also helps me determine if there's something like an ear infection. Next, I do something called tympanometry. So that's introducing a little bit of pressure into your ear, and your eardrum is supposed to move a certain amount. And that tells us if there's something like fluid or any other structural anomalies going on behind the eardrum that could be affecting your hearing or be causing any other otologic concerns. And then this is the audiogram that was previously mentioned. So to kind of orient you as to what you're looking at, all of these symbols are the softest sounds that you're able to hear. So the red circles are for your right ear, blue X's are for the left ear. And we're looking at different frequencies that are important to hear in speech. So as you go across the axis here, low frequencies on the left side, and then as you go across, they're getting higher. The 20 decibel line and above, that's the normal hearing range. Then as you go further down, you're needing sounds to be louder in order to hear them. So you'll see, for example, in this audiogram that I have here, there's a mild hearing loss in the low frequencies. And then as you go across, we're sloping into a profound hearing loss at the very highest frequencies that we test. All of these different sounds correspond to different sounds in English. So for example, in these higher frequencies, we're looking at like the S sound, F, SH, and those are sounds that make speech clear when someone's talking to you. So in this person's example, if they're having trouble hearing some of those higher frequencies, especially, things can sound a little bit muffled. It'll be easier to get certain words mixed up. And this is effectively acting like a filter, so it'll be more difficult to hear when there's a lot of background noise happening. There are different types of hearing loss that we can come across. There's something called a conductive hearing loss, where there's something physically present somewhere in the ear pathway that's preventing sound from making it to the terminal organ, the cochlea, which sends the sound signal up to the brain. So that could be anything as simple as earwax in the ear, preventing hearing from going through. There might be bone growths, there might be tumors, something like that. So that requires a referral to someone like an ear, nose, and throat specialist. Side note on that, there are different providers that you might come across, as you're going through this hearing evaluation process. So there's the ear, nose, and throat specialist. They focus on if there are any medical conditions happening, any type of disease, and they're able to prescribe something like a medication or do surgery. My background is I'm looking at the functional aspect of your hearing, looking at your type of hearing loss, determining what type of hearing aid might make the most sense, or referring to someone else if, a different type of treatment is warranted. Going back to the hearing testing here, you'll also see that I have some word recognition scores on the bottom left here. So that's looking at the health of the auditory nerve. So it's looking to see how clear things sound, once we make words loud enough. This person was getting 100% in both ears once we made the sounds loud enough for them. So that tells me that the nerve is nice and healthy, and that's something we want to preserve. Something else that might warrant a referral to a different provider is if I were to see a big difference in the hearing between the two ears. Typically, with normal noise exposure over a lifetime, we expect your ears to kind of, change in a symmetrical way. So if we see a big difference between the two ears, that might signal that something medical is going on, and we want to get that checked out. Just to know on tinnitus, so this is a sound in your ears without an outside acoustic source. People will report that this sounds like a ringing sound, a buzzing, chirping. Some people perceive it as like a music. So it can really sound like a number of different things. You'll see that I've referenced that over 45 million Americans have tinnitus. So it's quite common. And it can be related to a number of different things. So very often it's related to hearing loss. It can be related to a loud noise exposure incident, certain medications, head injury, TMJ, certain tumors. In general, the theory behind how the tinnitus is working is your brain gets used to a certain amount of sound coming in through your ear pathway over your lifetime. And if something changes, like a change in your hearing sensitivity, your brain picks up on that and wants to compensate. So the thought is that the auditory nerve starts to randomly fire, which is perceived as that ringing, buzzing, chirping. Oftentimes, when someone has both hearing loss and the tinnitus, we start by treating with hearing aids. And that's because there's dual effects there. So we're helping the hearing loss itself, but we're, just in general, giving more stimulation back to those auditory pathways from an external source. So you're not having to compensate as much. So people notice that they don't perceive the tinnitus as, forward. We can't guarantee that it will definitely go away, but oftentimes it's not as noticeable. One of the big frontiers here is looking at the relationship between hearing loss and different cognitive changes. So this isn't to say that something like hearing loss will cause something like dementia. It's more like it's a risk factor because the hearing loss means that you're not getting as much stimulation to certain pathways in your brain. And it's kind of like a use it or lose it situation where if you're not using those pathways, it starts to deteriorate. And just, less activity in the brain can lead to things like cognitive changes such as dementia and Alzheimer's. One of the good things is that hearing loss, when treated, is one of the most preventable risk factors for, something like dementia. So it's important to, get in, get checked out, see what your levels are, and intervene as soon as possible if warranted. So after I, go through your test results and we determine that you're a good candidate for hearing aids, I would bring you back for a hearing aid consultation. During this appointment, I like to trial different manufacturers for each patient. And the reason for that is each manufacturer has their own ways of processing the sound. And each person might, have a different preference for the sound quality. And there are other factors related to what makes the most sense based on each person's history as well. So we'll kind of go into that too. Let's see here. So another thing that we talk about is your insurance coverage. So something that we check ahead of time before a consultation appointment is to see if you have any insurance benefit. Like Gabe was mentioning, there are also third parties that work with certain insurance plans that would make you eligible for discount pricing as well. So we look into that ahead of time so that we have a rough idea of, what the out-of-pocket cost would be. You'll see here that I have two different styles of hearing aids kind of lined up in the pictures here. On the left side, there's an in-the-ear style. So there's no piece behind the ear. The full hearing aid goes into the ear canal. And then on the right side, there's a behind the ear style hearing aid. So the processor is actually sitting behind the ear, and then you see that wire hooking over the top. And then there's a small rubber cap, the dome, that goes into the ear canal. So you'll see that these have gotten pretty small over time. And I would say the right side actually tends to be a little bit more discreet if that's something that we're concerned about. So there are 6 major hearing aid manufacturers. They've all been well established. They all come with warranties and trial periods and good programming support, which is what we're looking for. All of them can be programmed according to most hearing levels. It's just that, the chip on the inside is different. So when I have, a patient in front of me and we're trying a couple different manufacturers, I like to ask if something sounds, more natural, if they're not noticing as much ambient noise around them. And then, just if they have a gut reaction as to which one they like better. And that's not to say that one's better than the other. It's more of a personal preference. Some of the other distinguishing factors between some of these companies is the waterproof rating. So if someone is, constantly exercising or exposed to a lot of moisture in the air or something like that, that is something that might guide me to one manufacturer versus the other. Certain connectivity options with the phone. There's kind of a split between the type of connection from the hearing aids to the phone that can guide me one way or the other. So it might depend on if the patient has an Android versus an iPhone. Some of these hearing aids have a traditional Bluetooth connection, so that can connect directly to, their computer and other Bluetooth devices versus something that has like a made for iPhone connection. So that's a little bit different. Something that is different between the apps or the hearing aid companies as well is the app that is associated with it. So some of them give you a little bit more leeway to have at-home adjustments that you can make. And then some of them are, you just kind of put the hearing aids on, you can adjust the volume using the app, and then you kind of set it and forget about it. So how much flexibility you want at home is also something that can guide our decision-making. Kind of expanding on this, some of the behind-the-scenes proprietary tech that differentiates between the manufacturers you can see here. So how the hearing aids are analyzing your sound environment. If you're at a restaurant, how is it picking up, like dishes clanking or people, putting their utensils down, other people talking in the background. The companies have different ways of, focusing on the speech signal and then tampering down some of that background noise. One of the big hot things right now is AI and machine learning. So a lot of this is, training the hearing aids with the different types of environments people are naturally going to and learning how to pick up when people are talking tampering down other things that you don't want to be listening to, because the underlying assumption here is that speech is the most important signal that we want to be picking up. Another thing that has been, kind of been adding into the technology is motion sensors. So it's able to detect where someone is talking in relation to you as you are moving yourself, because we're active, we're always getting up, moving around. We want to be able to use the hearing aids effectively there as well. The battery life has been greatly improving. I know we've been kind of talking about that a little bit. Some of the hearing aid manufacturers are able to last a couple of days without charging, which is great. And I think all of the hearing aid manufacturers are kind of moving towards that goal. Something else we talk about is how some of the manufacturers have health monitoring features. So things like step counting, movement reminders, which is helpful if you're in, a sedentary kind of work environment. Some of the hearing aids have fall alerts, which is good from a safety standpoint. One kind of cool feature is language translation. So if someone's speaking to you in a different language, it transcribes it in your preferred language on the app. And tinnitus management too. So there are different things that each manufacturer does to provide support if the tinnitus is quite bothersome. This is just my musing as to what might come next in the industry. So of course, more AI and machine learning to really make that speech signal quite clear. Something I remember discussing in school is eye movement detection. So the hearing aid's kind of picking up what you're looking at, assuming that that's what you want to be listening to really help with that signal to noise ratio. And then just broadly more health monitoring is my guess. So after we kind of narrow down what makes the most sense in terms of the hearing aids that make sense for your hearing levels, your background, your lifestyle, we would schedule a fitting appointment. During that appointment, you would come back to see me. We would set up the hearing aids according to your prescription, make sure that everything is fitting well in your ears comfortably, and making sure that we're not getting any feedback, which is that squealing sound you might associate with hearing aids. We make sure that you're able to properly put them in, take them out. We'll connect to your cell phone, review the app function, and then we'll review the warranty information as well. So typically, hearing aids come with a 3-year manufacturer warranty. So if there's something that the hearing aid provider can't fix in office, typically you can get that repaired by the manufacturer. Then there is a follow-up schedule. So at the beginning, it's a little bit of back and forth. I like to see you during your trial period. That's typically included after you get fitted with hearing aids. So during the fitting, I'm taking my best guess as to what will sound good for you. But then, you have to go and wear them in the real world, come back with your feedback during your trial to make sure that everything is going well and I can make changes based on the feedback. Gabe, did you have a question?
Well, I think Gabe has his first hand up, so go ahead, Gabe.
The providers was Costco. And I didn't go to Costco for a number of reasons. One is I didn't think there would be doctors of audiology. There'd be licensed providers. But I've heard very positive feedback, both from people who went to Costco. But my question is about the devices that Costco provides, where I've heard that some of the devices there are Costco brand. And I assume that they're made by some of those 6 manufacturers that you mentioned. And the question is, if someone is shopping at Costco, can they figure out who really made the devices they're looking at so they understand what they're getting rather than thinking they're just getting something that Costco manufactured?
Right. Yeah. So that's frequently a discussion that comes up during these appointments. Costco has hearing aids from two of the major hearing aid manufacturers that I've discussed here, but it's not their flagship devices. Typically, it's a different type of hearing aid that the manufacturers set aside for parties like Costco. Looking at the type of tech that they have, I would say it's equivalent with generations that are a few years prior compared to what the hearing aid manufacturers have available. So the devices might be a little bit more basic. So that's something you want to think about if you're, finding the most difficulty in places that are quite complex, places with a lot of background noise. Another note on Costco is that they're not able to bill your insurance. So if you have an insurance benefit, that could be used at somewhere like a clinic to kind of defray the cost of the devices. But yeah, that's kind of my spiel on, what's available at Costco. I see we have a couple other questions here. Gerald?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'm a hearing aid user for many, many years.
Yeah.
I've used Widex and now currently have Cigna. And I've
Okay.
noticed that I'm having a problem now with clarity or recognition, as some people refer to it. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering of the 6 manufacturers, I realize they all have different approaches to how they deal with noise and stuff. Of the 6, which do you, in your opinion, do you think deal with clarity or word recognition best?
Yeah, so it's hard for me to say without looking at your hearing test results. So for example, if you were to have a very high frequency sharp slope, that might guide me to something like Phonak or Widex versus some of the other manufacturers. And those high frequencies are often what's associated with that clarity aspect of speech. So I know it's kind of like I can't really give you a straight answer there, but it really is specifically dependent on your hearing levels.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess the clarity and word understanding depend a great deal on the sibilances, the high frequencies,
Right.
and at our ages, our high frequencies clearly have rolled off pretty good. So I find that I have to keep my high frequencies up pretty high, and that makes things sound pretty tinny. But even
Yeah.
then, in many cases, I still have problem with word recognition. So I guess each manufacturer recognizes this and deal with it in their own way, but you
Right.
have no particular recommendation of one over the other.
Not without being able to see your hearing tests, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
So Dr. Perera, one thing I noticed is that Gary told us that he got Phonak hearing aids from the VA. And then
Yes.
Mary Dodd, who's our wonderful retired Marine, told us she got Oticon aids from the VA. So has the VA changed what their default manufacturer is, or do they supply, multiple brands? Do you know?
They work with multiple manufacturers so that it's not, just one set one that you get when you go to the VA. I'm not sure what their consultation appointment structure is like, but you have options there.
Not just the members don't always have the option, I think. So,
That might be the case. Yeah.
yeah, why don't you go back to the chat now to
Oh, sure. Yeah. So just a few more points. There is, some maintenance and follow-up required. So after we kind of narrow down what settings you like at the beginning, after you're fitting that first initial follow-up, I like to see you every 6 months, just to make sure that everything is working okay with the hearing aids, pushing necessary updates to the firmware, seeing if we need to make any adjustments. And like Gabe had kind of touched on, there is, some at-home maintenance you can do as well. So you can, change the domes yourself, change the filters. And I do want to do an annual hearing test just to monitor your hearing, see if it's staying stable or if we need to make adjustments based on changes that we see in your hearing. And yeah, that's all I had prepared for us today. So I'm happy to take any questions. I see Neil, you have your hand up.
I think Fergie has his hand up. Go ahead, Fergie.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure. I'm not able to hear
Fergie?
what you said.
Fergie, we're not hearing your audio. Sorry. Okay, maybe we'll come back to Fergie.
I see David has his hand up. Yep, David.
Jonathan?
Yeah, go ahead, David.
It's a question about crosstalk, which is something that I had once and still could use. They're extremely expensive, and there doesn't seem to be many manufacturers. My last one was Otacon. Are more people producing crosstalk, or is that going to become more or less common? Is there not enough profit in it, or do you know anything about that?
Unfortunately, I don't know too much on the status of that at the moment. Possibly because there hasn't been too much research behind it. So that's my answer. Not too much information.
Well, it's just a microphone in the one ear that I can't hear out of at all. And it just essentially broadcasts it to feeds it to the other ear.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so
And I guess I'm
system.
not sure why it's so expensive just to have a microphone in one ear when all the technology's in the other ear.
Yeah. So to kind of get everyone up to speed on what this is, sometimes, if you have a very asymmetrical hearing, you're hearing better on one side versus the other, where on your poorer side, the word recognition is quite poor. Say we're playing the words very loud, and then you're still only getting, 20% of the words correct. That tells us that the auditory nerve has become quite damaged on that side. So putting a traditional hearing aid on that poorer ear, making the sounds louder, isn't necessarily going to help, and it might introduce more, noise or distortion to the system. So there's something called a bicross system where you actually wear two devices that look like hearing aids, traditional hearing aid on the better side, but then on the poorer side, it's a transmitter. So it's just a microphone that picks up the sound around you and then sends that signal over to the better ear so that your better ear is able to more clearly understand what that signal is. In terms of, the cost, I can't speak to what each clinic kind of has their pricing set at. But typically the price of the cross transmitter is a bit less than the traditional hearing aid. And I know its main function is that microphone. It is still doing a little bit of processing to figure out, where sounds are coming from. But yeah, I can't really speak to, the rationale behind the pricing.
Oh, Dr. Perera, could you shut down the screen share now? It makes it easier for the Q&A stuff. Rich McKinney and then Diana King.
Hi, Doctor. I have a question from the technology standpoint. If you have a sensory deficit, so you can't hear higher frequencies, for example, I assume that means the nerve isn't connected or the nerve isn't working. So how does just amplifying it how does a hearing aid amplification make hearing aids work when there's no connection there? It seems like if there's a gap, like an electric circuit, sending more voltage to it isn't going to help it any. So can you explain technically how hearing aids work? Thanks.
Yeah, so the deficit in something called a sensory neural hearing loss can be related to the nerve, but also hair cells in the cochlea. So that's where the sound is being transmitted from the ear to the level of the nerve. And the damage to the hair cells means that you need a louder signal to activate the process. So it's not that it's just broken, it's not working. It's just a higher threshold at which the cells need to activate or fire. So that's what the hearing aids do. It's sending in a louder signal, so that the hair cells can activate and send that sound signal up to the brain, going further up the pathway.
Okay, thank you so much. I never really understood that.
Yeah.
I'd like to follow up with that with just a data point for you, Dr. Perera, because
Sure.
when you showed the high frequency chart, it
Mhm.
reminded me that the great thing when I started using my hearing aids is all the bird song came back to me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much I was missing them.
Right. Yeah, it's a very gradual change, so sometimes you don't notice what you're missing. Diana, do you have a question?
Yeah, this question is prompted by my seeing the headline on an article a couple of weeks ago saying that there is speculation that the heavy use of earphones, earpods, etc., over the years will be causing earlier hearing loss in members of the population generally. And I was just wondering if you're seeing that in your practice, that people coming to you for testing and hearing aids are younger than they used to be. They're not just in the, over 60 group.
Yeah, I definitely see people across the age range. I would say it's probably still a little bit early to tell as to whether heavy usage of the AirPods headphones is relating to certain decreases in when we're seeing that onset of hearing loss. It's
You think it's
theorized
likely that it will happen?
I do think so. And it really does depend on how loud people are listening to the music. So, or, whatever they're listening to in their devices. It really does depend on the level at which they're listening to these things. Because if you're, always wearing your AirPods, for example, but you're listening to things at a safe level, I don't see a problem with that. It's more like when there's not regulation or control over how loud some of these devices can be. But based on the mechanism of what's happening, the damage that's happening to those hair cells that I'd mentioned before, this, prediction makes sense to me.
Right. Well, I can only say that when I was a teacher and I had to be a chaperone at school dances, this is a middle school, mind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I didn't wear any protection on my ears, I noticed a definite effect of that loudness from the speakers when I left the dance and went home.
Right.
And it kind of went away, but I have to wonder, about the effect of that kind of stuff over a period of time. I went back to the next dance wearing earplugs.
Good. That's always good. Protect what you have. There is research showing that even, just moments of loud exposure like that. So, going to a loud concert, being near a loudspeaker, like you mentioned, where you notice a temporary threshold shift where, you might hear ringing, buzzing, decrease in hearing sensitivity, and then it seems to come back. But it seems like the incidents like that are actually causing some more insidious damage further in the auditory pathway, where some of the extraneous cells that hold those hair cells that I mentioned before in place start to become a little bit more weak. So that leads to, damage further in time. So my recommendation is always to wear earplugs or, limit how loud you're listening to things.
Right.
Fergie, you want to try again? We couldn't get your audio before, but give it a
Can
try.
you hear me now or not?
Yes, we sure can. Go ahead.
I didn't come early enough to test my audio before turning it on. Anyway, I have a question, chat about tinnitus. I got that many, many years ago. And of course, it's ringing in my ears all the time. And they say you get used to it. I don't know if the tinnitus is gone or am I still used to it because I don't hear it anymore.
Yeah, that's actually the goal. So, the tinnitus or the mechanism that's causing the tinnitus might not go away, but the goal is to make it so that you don't focus on it as much. I always say that if you're talking about tinnitus and you're trying to find it, you'll be able to hear it. But the goal is to find, ways to manage it so that you're not paying attention to it as much, you're not noticing it as much. So that's quite frequent.
I don't notice it at all anymore.
That's great.
Yeah, I guess I'm just used to it. It might be still. I don't know if it's still.
Yeah, that's good.
One other comment I want to make. I have the Phonak hearing aids,
Mm-hmm.
and I go to my son's house in Hawaii for the winters, and he has he watches TV with earphones all the time. I don't know. He just likes his earphones, and whatever his earphones are, it generates a signal that interrupts my hearing aids when I'm using the. I got the gadget, and that's the hearing aids connect to a TV. I use that, but when he uses hearing aids, hearing headphones, it makes some of the Bluetooth, and my little gadget's Bluetooth, and it just browns out my little Bluetooth thing for the hearing earphones. So I have to.
Yeah, Phonak is one of the manufacturers that uses a traditional Bluetooth signal, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's all.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm just plugging in my computer. Sorry, didn't want the computer to die on us here.
So this was the TV being connected by Bluetooth to one device, couldn't connect to another device?
Talk to me?
Yeah, Fergie.
I bought the thing, when I got my hearing aids at the Phonak, I bought the gadget that allows the hearing aids to connect to a TV.
Right.
But my son's earphones, his Bluetooth, wherever his Bluetooth comes from, it just overpowers my device.
Yeah, so if you have, over the ear headphones that connect to the TV, that's doing its job. And then when you're putting them over the hearing aids, those aren't gonna, interact with each other. So you're still able to use the hearing aids while having the TV headset over them. That's fine.
I don't have the TV set over. My son does.
Okay.
He never stopped listening to his TV with Bluetooth to his headphones, but that Bluetooth signal interferes with my Phonak hearing aids. I can't use it. So I take my hearing aids out.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I imagine it's probably because Phonak uses a traditional Bluetooth connection and that he's also using a Bluetooth connection to the same device. So that's my guess. I'd have to see more about what the TV is and everything.
Bill Wydrow, you're next. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, I think I remember someone with hearing aids telling me that it was connected to their cell phone. They were in a restaurant at a long table, and wanted to hear the conversation better at the other end of the table, and put their cell phone down at the other end of the table, and could hear it from the other end. Does that sound like something technologically that can be done?
Yes. With the iPhone, there's something with certain manufacturers of the hearing aids that you can use called live listen. So when you pair the hearing aids to the phone and then you activate this live listen function, it turns your phone into a remote microphone. So whatever is being picked up by the phone's microphone is being streamed directly into the hearing aids. So in your friend's case, you set the phone down in the table, the other end of the table. What the people are saying there gets picked up by the phone, and then that's streamed directly into the hearing aids. So that's helpful when you're trying to cut down the effect of background noise.
It's a feature of the iPhone.
Yes.
Does the Android have that capability?
No.
No. Thank you.
Yeah, that sometimes has been a good solution when my wife complains that I have the TV turned up too loud.
Yeah. Yep, that's a good workaround.
Mary Dodd, go ahead.
Yes, I can pair with my TV because I have the little device. I can pair with my iPhone and my iPad, but I really want to be able to pair with my MacBook Air laptop. Why not?
That I'm not sure about. That would be
I can
probably
answer
your
that.
lead. Okay.
That Apple uses a protocol called MFI, made for iPhone, and some, but not all, of the major hearing aid manufacturers use this protocol. And it's only available in iOS, not in Mac OS.
That
And
makes
believe
sense.
me, I've Googled everywhere. No luck. Yeah, you're out of luck. You cannot pair a Mac with a hearing aid directly. However, the same little box the size of a pack of cards that I use for my television, if I wanted to, I could plug it into the audio output of a computer or even a laptop. But this little box requires a 110 volt AC power supply. So using it with a laptop is kind of a kludge and cumbersome to unplug everything and plug it all back in.
Sure.
It works fine for a desktop to stream it directly to my hearing aids.
Yeah.
But these little boxes cost money.
Right.
So, an alternative is to spend the similar amount of money for a pair of over-the-ear headphones you can put on over top of your hearing aid that stream to your Mac or your laptop.
Right.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Van, did you have a question or comment?
Dr. Perera, how would you describe the ideal patient? What would what do patients do that just delight you in terms of being able to work with you and take care of their hearing aids and all of that? Just make them the ideal.
Yeah, that's a great question.
What sort of drives you crazy?
Yeah, these are good questions. So there is some maintenance to using hearing aids, right? So if this piece is going in your ear every day, your whole life, there is going to be some buildup of debris, wax, that type of thing on the devices. So making sure that you're taking good care of them, cleaning them, changing the domes, the filters, making sure that that is not a factor in any possible issue that you might be having with the hearing aids when you're coming in. That's great, and that just helps keep the hearing aids lasting as long as possible as well. So doing your homework of making sure that they're clean and also wearing them as much as possible too. So it takes some time for your brain to get used to wearing a new pair of hearing aids, either, if you've just never worn hearing aids before, or even if you're getting a new pair, there are changes to how your brain is processing the sound. So really giving it a fair shot, wearing them every day as much as possible. That gives us kind of the best idea of whether or not these hearing aids are working well for you. And that kind of guides, what I can do in the office for you too.
Gary, I think you're next.
Yeah, I got a question about turning off the hearing aids momentarily. Many times I'm streaming stuff, and so nobody can hear it because it's Bluetooth. And then I say, oh, I'll let my wife listen to something real quick. And it seems like I've got to go in and unpair, you go to settings, unpair my Android, and it's a real pain in the neck. Is there any way to momentarily stop the Bluetooth to my phone and then let it go back to my phone without going through all the settings?
Yeah. So rather than unpairing the device, I would recommend just turning off your Bluetooth momentarily when you're showing your wife something. So, pulling down on your screen, just tapping the Bluetooth button so that it's off. And then when you turn it back on, it should pair back automatically. So you don't have to go through the repairing process.
So I still have to go through settings and find Bluetooth, and then
oftentimes if you
it's the
swipe
same
down
thing.
on your home screen, there should be some type of icon, like a Bluetooth icon that's like a shortcut where you can easily just turn it off and on. What type of do you have an iPhone?
No,
No,
it's an Android. It's an
Oh, an
Android
It's
phone.
Android.
Yeah.
Well, I
It
do
should-
see when I swipe down, there's a phone icon at the top. Interesting. I didn't notice that before. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, it should be like a Bluetooth, like the B symbol.
I don't see that, but I'll check. I'm just trying to find a quicker way than going through all that.
There should be a shortcut.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul, go ahead.
Hi, I've been wearing hearing aids since before digital hearing aids were invented.
Yeah.
And at the time, my original audiologist recommended I use behind the ear hearing aid because they were more powerful.
Right.
Of course, I've since moved to digital hearing aids, but I still wear behind the ear hearing aids. I'm wondering if that theory still holds, that the larger behind the ear hearing aids offers more capability than some of the smaller ones in the ear, for example.
Yes. It depends on how much power we're needing to generate for your hearing levels. So if you're needing quite a bit of power for, quite a bit of loudness, what the larger hearing aid is able to do is accommodate a larger battery, so that you're not having to change, the battery, every 2 days or so. Or if you have a rechargeable one, the battery is still lasting you the full day. So mostly it's kind of speaking to the battery life of them.
Thank you.
Dr. Perera, in the chat, one thing I wondered about, how often do your users opt for the in-canal hearing aids? Because these are the ones that are completely invisible, but I think they have to be cleaned or changed more often.
Yeah, they're definitely an option. They can be quite small. As you go smaller with the in-the-ear style, you do lose some of the functionality. So oftentimes if you're, at the size where it's invisible, you can't connect to a cell phone. You have to use replaceable batteries, so they're not rechargeable. And then just with that style too, because, the whole hearing aid with all the circuitry and everything is inside the ear canal, it's a little bit more prone to moisture buildup and, wax or debris getting into the hearing aid itself. So I would say from my experience, this style has to be sent out for repair more often. So something to consider.
Gabe, and then back to Fergie. Go ahead, Gabe.
Well, I have to confess that I got distracted and forgot what I was going to say. So let's move on, and possibly I will remember.
Gabe, you're not the only one that does that.
Okay, so then we go to Fergie and then back to Gary again. Go ahead, Fergie.
Just quick, like I mentioned before, I have the phonak hearing aids, and I got it through the VA, and the audiologist gave me a choice of the over the ear, which I picked, or goes entirely in the ear. And if you go in the ear, that's going to be awfully small. I'll lose that sucker and nothing flat. So I like this over the ear. I don't know. I had a choice between the two, and that was my picking.
Yeah.
I don't know if all hearing aids are like that or not, or if they give for a person a choice like that. That's all.
Yeah. We definitely talk about, the different styles during the appointment, but I would say maybe 80 to 90% of my patients go with the behind the ear style.
It's bigger, hard to lose.
Yes.
But you can manage to lose it. I now I remember what I was going to what I was going to say. Discussion a few moments ago talking about if you want to mute the hearing aids momentarily. This may or may not fit that situation, but sometimes if I'm in a very noisy environment, I will turn the hearing aids off. And since I have them paired with the phone, they're paired with the watch, and I can just tap the Oticon app on the watch and turn off the hearing aids. And then they work almost like earplugs because they're sitting in my ears, but they're not generating any sound. And that lets me deal with maybe places like Diana was talking about where you're at a middle school dance and it's chaotic. More and more restaurants seem to value hard surfaces and lots of noise. And so sometimes just turning the hearing aids off is a good thing to do.
Right.
Do you know, Gabe, that I read in the Post that Tom Sietsma, the restaurant reviewer, includes the decibel reading in all of his restaurant reviews now.
Yes.
That's great.
Well, I think everyone's recognizing what the cost is of those sort of restaurant structures.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary, go ahead, and then Jim Landsberg. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. My first set of hearing aids that I got through the VA were the typical ones that just fit, they're kind of large and they fit behind the ear,
Mhm.
And since I have glasses, I didn't like that because they tended to kind of fall out or they stick up or something. I thought there might be something better. So I did a little research and I found out that Phonak has one that's called Slim.
Yeah.
And so I had them change it. And since I wear glasses, I'm not sure if it's any better or any worse, but they have a smaller profile at least, and it still sits on top of the glasses, and they tend to fall out even because they're not really close to my skin. But anyway, that's another thing for someone to think about because they never told me that I had a choice between the regular type or the so-called slim version. But just to be aware that there are other styles.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that kind of guides us when we're talking about the different manufacturers during that consult. So when I'm putting them on for you to try them on in the office, you'll be wearing your glasses, hopefully. So we make sure that it's a comfortable fit. And then if it's not, we can talk about things like the Phonak Slim, like you mentioned. So that's great.
Yeah, one of the traps for the unwary for me is my reading glasses never seem to cause a problem with the hearing aids. And my bike helmet never seems to cause a problem. But if I'm wearing the bike helmet and wear sunglasses, I have to be sure that I don't whip them off too fast.
Yeah. It's definitely something to get used to for sure. Yeah.
Okay, Jim
Combination
Landsberg.
was back during COVID, wearing a hat and mask and glasses did not get along with the hearing aids.
Right. Not enough real estate behind the ears. Yeah, that's for sure.
Do you know my audiologist actually recommended to me to stop using over-the-ear masks and use the over-the-head masks?
Right. Yep. So the ones that tie behind the head are less likely to to knock off the hearing aids when you're taking the mask off. Exactly right.
Okay, Jim, go ahead. Jim Landsberg?
All right, thank you. Thank you. I have Oticon that I got about, I think, well over 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
And they work great. They still work terrific.
Good.
At the beginning, they had a rechargeable battery. And there was some problem, I guess, and so they stopped servicing that. And the problem was they wouldn't work somehow. And so all these years I've used changing the battery. And I'm wondering if two things, I've had these things for at least probably 6 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Has the technology improved enough to make a difference, whether it's worthwhile buying a new set? And apparently they've gone back to using a rechargeable battery. Is it worthwhile making the change? I mean, the ones that I have work great, but I have to change the battery every couple days.
Yeah, I would say in general, they've kind of worked out some of the initial kinks with the rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. So we don't experience too many issues with that anymore. So if you're interested in, not having to change the battery yourself, that might be worth looking into. A lot of where the updates in the processing have happened is with how the noise filtering is taking place. So they're a little bit better at picking out when people are talking, bringing down that background noise. And the way that they're doing that is a couple different ways. In general, the way our ears naturally function when there's a lot of background noise is they're making comparisons between each other. So our ears are able to pick up very slight differences in volume and timing, when someone's talking to you. And that's what's able to allow, you to not focus on some of that background noise. And the hearing aids are starting to mimic what our ears naturally do. So there's more communication between the two sides to help with some of that, the noise filtering. So that's one way. And then the other way that I kind of touched on before is with, some of the AI and machine learning to learn what a traditional speech signal sounds like in different environments. So those are some of the updates that have happened. I would say, even in the past few years, if not 5-6 years ago.
So it might be worthwhile just for the technology improvements. And
yeah, it doesn't hurt to try it out.
Cover some of the costs. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So, Dr. Perera, does it stand out to you that some of the manufacturers can do a better job of suppressing background interference than others?
It depends on what types of situations you're in. One example that's coming to mind is I have a patient who is a dental hygienist. So she's working with a lot of, drills and, machinery. So I might recommend one manufacturer for that kind of noise versus someone that's going to a lot of restaurants and having a lot of, just ambient talking around you. So it depends on the lifestyle.
Bruce, you're next, and then Rich McKinney.
Okay, I have a couple quick things here. They're all fast, so I'm just going to blast right through them.
Yeah.
Number one, folks should see my EE or electrical engineer perspective on telecoils and how they operate that I wrote and posted already in the meeting chat that explains how they work, why you get interference, and what to do about it, or what you can do about it. I don't happen to have telecoils on my current hearing aids, but I'm on my third or fourth whole type of or technology of hearing aids, and I've used telecoils in the past. So, okay, that's number one. Number two,
Great.
For Rich, he asked about iPad pairing versus iPhone or something. Yes, you can, if you wish to, pair your iPad instead of your iPhone with your Bluetooth hearing aids. Not all hearing aids in the past had Bluetooth, but most, maybe all of them nowadays that you're liable to buy new seem to have that. And that's how I do it. I pair with my iPad, not my iPhone. Why? Because I carry the iPad everywhere anyway. So I might as well use the iPad because I can see it much better. And, my eyes are pretty good, but I'm still an older person with older person's eyes. So, okay. Number 3, over the ear sunglasses and other, somebody talked about masks, COVID masks. Yes, I use the kind with the bands that don't go over your ears, but I've also found that my longtime sunglasses, which are designed to fit over regular eyeglasses, don't play nicely with my right hearing aid. So there's too much going on there behind the ears. Too bad there's not as much going on between the ears, right? But no, anyway. So my solution, and it works pretty well, is I've found that if you slip, in my case, this might not work for everybody. If you slip the temple piece, the part that goes behind your ear of the sunglasses, between the ear and the hearing aid body that in my case fits behind your ear, it fits okay. If you try to do it so that it's closest to the earlobe, it doesn't work. It works on the left, but not on the right. Your mileage will probably vary. So anyway, and if you have the in the canal type, this doesn't even apply to you. That's my piece. Any questions?
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay.
Rich McKinney, you're next.
Hi. My question is the wire on my right ear doesn't fit as close to the head as the one on my left one. Can we adjust those wires ourselves, or do you have any tricks, or do we recommend we come in to see someone like you?
Yeah, so that wire is actually the speaker. So that's something that you would have to go into the audiologist. That's a very easy fix, though. They should have different lengths for you to try out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Van Zek, go ahead.
Dr. Perera, we're in a technology group here, and we spend a lot of time off and on talking about batteries and rechargeable batteries and battery life. And there's all the various approaches to how to make your rechargeable lithium-ion batteries last a long time. The short question is, for rechargeable batteries and hearing aids, can we expect the same kind of degradation in the battery after 2 or 3 or 4 years of use that we find in iPhones and iPads and so forth? And then again, what's the process for getting those rechargeable batteries replaced?
Right. Yes. So you can. It's still a lithium-ion battery, so it is going to have that degradation. Usually, it starts to kind of go down at the 2.5, 3 year mark. I recommend being proactive and knowing when your warranty is about to expire with the manufacturer. And what your audiologist can do is send your devices in for like a courtesy refurbishment before they go out of warranty. So the manufacturer will change the battery, put a brand new one in, look to see if there's any corrosion or anything else, going wrong with the circuitry, so that, as soon as you go out of warranty, you're starting with a brand new battery, and that's going to last you, a couple of years longer.
Thank you.
Diana King, back to you.
Yeah, I'm wrestling with a small frustration. I have hearing aids, Rexton hearing aids from Costco, and I have an iPhone, and I have AirPods, and of course, multiple other computers. And recently I was using the hearing aids, and I wanted to take a walk, and I wanted to use instead of the hearing aids, I wanted to use my AirPods to play music as I took a walk. So I put the AirPods in my ears,
taking off the hearing aids and setting them aside. And I click on the piece that I want to play, and I get nothing. Nothing. Okay, so I'm looking for a way to quickly switch. I mean, it was playing through my hearing aids still, even though they were set aside on the table. And the ear pods hadn't picked it up. I was looking for a quick way to shift from one device to the other. And I knew from a previous experience with music and the AirPods that sometimes a little menu would pop up at the bottom of the screen and give me a selection, couple of things. But that wasn't happening. And eventually the AirPods by themselves picked up the signal from the phone, which is what I was using for the music. And I was able to listen to the music, but I had already missed the part of the piece that I most wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a way to quickly switch from one device to the other when I start using the AirPods. Now, I decided while you were all talking that I would just go get the AirPods and put them in and just see what would be happening here. So I took my hearing aids out and set them aside, put the AirPods in. I have the phone sitting on the desk in front of me. Lo and behold, the iMac picked up the signal. And I'm now playing, you know, it paired up with the AirPods, and I'm now hearing, you know, with the iMac speakers as much as anything else.
Yeah,
So, you know, I'm wondering about all these different devices. How can I get them more easily? I don't want to go to some menu like in settings and have to scroll down and look for a way to do that. Is there anybody know any quick way to switch from one device to the other with the AirPods, you know, without a lot of hassle?
A foolproof way to make sure that it's not going to the hearing aids is you can manually turn your hearing aids off. Typically you hold down a button on the back of the hearing aid, so probably the bottom button if that's available. Hold that down and that should power off the hearing aid, so that doesn't even come up as an option for your phone to connect to.
Good point. Yeah. And then hopefully the AirPods will take the hint and pick it up. Okay, well that makes sense.
Diana, we've long thought that Bluetooth has to be a lot smarter in the future.
Dr. Perera, I'm jumping in here. This is Van. Did they tell you how much, in terms of being a doctor of audiology, that's one thing, but did they really tell you had to be an iPhone and Android tech support person when you were in school?
I did not know that until I started actually being in the clinic. So I'm wearing two hats here.
So Dr. Perera, you ought to let the school know that they should bone up on that, right?
Yeah, yep. I've passed along the message.
Karen Akoff, actually, a longtime Pi member, put an interesting question in the chat. What would be the best type of hearing aid for a musician?
Typically musicians like Widex. They have a certain way of processing some of those higher frequencies with a good balance across the frequency spectrum to make it sound, you know, have good fidelity. So I typically start with Widex for musicians.
Well, that's a good crisp answer. Tim, go ahead.
I was simply going to share the shortcut that I use to switch between hearing aids and Apple earbuds. I'm trying the trick to connect my phone's screen to sharing. Can anybody walk me through that in Zoom? How to share my iPhone?
Do you have it cabled to your computer currently?
Yes.
Jonathan, is sharing per participant, is Tim sharing on in Zoom?
Let me turn it on now. Okay, now you should be able to, Tim.
Okay, bottom of the screen or a menu? Bottom of the screen. Okay. And now desktop 1, desktop 2, iPhone via AirPlay, iPhone via cable.
Cable, that's it.
There. Bum. Bingo. Okay, here we go. Okay. The slow and cumbersome way is to use the settings menu and the hearing devices. Ignore that. There's a quick and easy way. The top right corner of your screen, where the signal bars and the Wi-Fi and the battery signal are here in the top right corner, you see that?
Yep.
Okay. You put your finger on that and pull down, and you get all of these little menus. This is a shortcut to the hearing aid controls. Don't use that. This is another way to control whether your output is going to the speakers, but don't use that. Instead, just go to right here, System, and click on that. And here you go. You now have a very quick and easy way to switch between the iPhone as the output of the iPhone's speaker as the output of your iPhone, or your hearing aid as the output of your iPhone. So now, with that one click, anything that would normally come out of the speaker of my iPhone is going to my hearing aids. Click again. Click again with a finger, not with a mouse. And there. Now it's coming out of the phone's speaker instead of being routed to my hearing aid. And that's slide up and it goes back to the top of the screen. There you go. Quick and simple from this top right corner. Drag down and touch that, and then touch hearing aids. There you go.
Very helpful, Tim. Thanks for showing us that.
Next.
Let's see, we have Bruce and then back to Gary.
Okay, I was going to say basically what Tim already said, except I'll add one thing is that when you select that choice that he was showing on his screen on his phone, you're selecting not the source, but the destination of the sound, whether if it says iPad or iPhone, if you have your hearing aids paired with your phone, that is the destination. If it says iPad or iPhone, it's going to the speakers in the iPad or iPhone. If you have hearing aids selected, your hearing aids effectively become your loudspeakers for your iPad or iPhone. And Diana, you're using earbuds. So I would hope, I don't have earbuds, so I haven't tried this, but I would hope that once you've set up your earbuds correctly, that will appear, those will appear as a choice in that same place. So you can pick them as the destination of the sound coming from your phone or your iPad. So when you're playing music on your iPad and you select earbuds in that menu, it should route the sound over Bluetooth from your iPhone to the earbuds. And I think that will solve your problem. Diana still there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just listening and I'm looking at my phone and, you know, the choices that are available.
I have a challenge for Tim. That was a good demo. Thank you. And
yes.
What you need, Tim, here's the challenge. I don't have hearing aids, so I can't really test it with hearing aids, but can you convert that? I create a number of shortcuts that I use, Apple shortcuts. I'm wondering if you could actually create a shortcut or say two shortcuts that you would put on your home screen. And I don't know if the shortcuts feature allows you to switch audio destination precisely like that. If it does, then you wouldn't even need to pull down the control center and go that way. You could have one tap on your home screen to switch the destination where you wanted it. I don't know if that's possible with a shortcut or not.
That's an excellent
question,
and it's
that'd be
too bad
that'd be
Aaron
even
isn't
faster.
here. It's too bad Aaron Davis isn't here. He might know the answer. That's a very good question. It boils down to whether or not the shortcuts or shortcuts app on your phone or your iPad supports switching the audio in a similar manner to what Tim demonstrated.
I might try it. I could see if I could switch to AirPods. That would be a similar kind of test, but it wouldn't be the definitive test.
If you do, please post your results, good or bad, on the chat, on the club's email list, if you would, Van.
Oh, if I solve something, I definitely want credit for it. That was supposed to be funny, but apparently not.
Let's go.
I was muted, so you couldn't hear me laughing.
Let's go back to Gary. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, just to get back on my question about turning off my Bluetooth momentarily so my wife could listen to something playing. Yeah, thanks. I found the little Bluetooth
shortcut
right at the top there. I didn't even think about that, but it's working. Thanks. It's a lot faster than going through the settings.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, first, I just posted that Mary Dodd is the winner of our door prize for today's meeting. So, Mary, would you like a gift card or an AirTag as your door prize winner today? Oh, did we lose Mary? No, she's here.
Mary, if you can hear me, unmute, please.
And Dr. Perera, while we're waiting for Mary to elect, in appreciation for your presentation today, I wanted to share a picture of the handsome pie mug that we send to presenters. So if you could just share a snail mail address with us after the meeting, we'll send that off to you. And Gabe, I don't know if you're full up with pie mugs, but if you're not, we'd be happy to send you one also.
I'm afraid that the mug shelf is overflowing. Mugs are already at risk of dying a death by being shattered. So I will take a long-term rain check on the mug.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I don't know if other people have the same experience, but my wife and I regularly demote older mugs to our downstairs shelf to keep the mugs that we want to use in front handy. We'll write you a letter, Dr. Perera, and ask you to take a mug selfie once you get your mug. And we put those in an area that our pie members can see.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you so much. I have a mug shortage, so this is great. Thank you.
So, folks, any last questions for Dr. Perera? And I hope that if other questions come up, once we send around a recap of this meeting to our email list, that we can send you for further response, okay?
Of course, yeah. So I put my my email address in the end of that presentation, and then I think some of you have my email address as well, so feel free to share that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for all the knowledge you conveyed today.
Of course, no problem. Happy to be here.
And as a tech club, we will avidly follow the tech things that are coming. I mean, I, for one, can't imagine how hearing aids will be able to know where my eyes are looking.
Yeah. The thought is that there might be some type of electrode embedded in the hearing aid, so that can detect what you're looking at. So I think that's the theory. We'll see how far along they are with something like that, though.
And I think it should be actually a pretty light lift for AIs to be able to very effectively screen from the sounds we want to hear through hearing aids from the ones we want. That doesn't seem like it's far off in coming.
Yeah, they're definitely working on it. That's the big question for sure.
Well, Dr. Perera, thank you so much again. And feel free to hang around for, we have a few more minutes that will go back to our tech stuff, maybe on hearing aids, but other topics also.
Okay, yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
You're still sharing, Jonathan.
Well, I stopped the spotlight and stopped the share.
Could
And
you please post her email in the chat? I missed it in her presentation.
Yeah, I'll type that right now.
And thanks also to the YouTube audience. So we'll stop the YouTube stream now. Somehow.